going to be impressed with guys like Joe Harris. And you look at D'Angelo Russell, who's getting a second shot and played very well. So I think that the Nets can honestly move on in this, which would be a huge shocker. But I really think that the Nets can get it done. The 76ers, I think they have too many issues. Jimmy Butler continues to be a problem. How do you spread the wealth around when it comes to playing with one basketball? So I like the Nets.
The Magic and the Raptors. I'm sorry, not the Warriors. Well, that would be a heck of a matchup when it would be the finals. But the Magic and the Raptors today, 5:00.
The Raptors are too good. I mean, there's too much talent on this basketball team. We've seen a Raptors team that's disappointed in the playoffs, obviously, but now they have LeBron James no longer to contend with. This team is just too damn good, and I think in order for them to convince Kawhi Leonard to stick around, they've got to make a very deep run of the playoffs. I think the Raptors can dispatch the Magic in 5 games at the most, but probably going to be a sweep.
Well, if these two teams were in two separate conferences, in 2 different states, I would say that we'd have our national championship team, but it's not the case. But the other team in LA, the Clippers, against the Warriors, here we go, until they prove us wrong. Same thing that we said about LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Until they prove us wrong, we're going to be there. And so, but the Clippers, fun to watch, and the Warriors are fun to hate. So go Clippers.
Yeah, I mean, the Clippers are fun, but ask any random NBA fan, name me 2 guys on the Clippers, and I think that'd be a hard thing for them to do. You look at the Warriors, they've seemed more vulnerable, this year throughout the regular season, but again, the Warriors have never really cared about the regular season, other than that year when they won 73 games. So, I think that this might be a tough series for them, but I do think the Warriors move on. I mean, there's just too much talent on that basketball team. You wonder about the continued health of Steph Curry. But there's too many guys that can score the basketball. Kevin Durant is probably the best scorer in the NBA still. I think the Warriors move on, but I think this Clippers team makes it fun, and it makes it exciting to see what the Clippers do in the offseason, because I think there's a lot of people going to want to join this basketball team.
Well, feel good story is the Denver Nuggets getting there, but the Spurs, I think, are too good of a team, have historically proven themselves to do well in the playoffs. What are your thoughts? Game 1, round 1, the Spurs against the Nuggets.
Well, I mean, the problem for the Spurs, obviously their advantage is as far as the head coach with Greg Popovich, but I think when you look at those teams of the past from the Spurs, that none of those guys, still are around for the most part. So I think this Nuggets team has been good. They've been fun to watch in the regular season. Now can they transition that regular season record into playoff success? They're the number 2 seed, and for a while sat there as the number 1 seed as, the season wore on. So I like the Nuggets in this matchup. I think the Spurs have just gotten, to the point to where those glory years are gone.
Talking with Mo from the BS Sports Show, 104.9 The Eagle, up in Ohio. We talked a little bit about the Pacers and the Celtics. One other game to talk about tomorrow is the Thunder and the Trailblazers. Man, the Thunder, they got themselves PG, and maybe that's what I think we were talking about earlier. I think that's what Magic Johnson thought he had. He thought that he had a PG, and that didn't happen. PG thought that he had a Magic Johnson, which is why he was pushing so hard to leave the Pacers. Now he's just nestled in and said, hey, I think I'm just okay here at the Oklahoma City Thunder. We look at their coach, though. All likelihood going to fire or resign, maybe go to UCLA. I think that'd be a good choice. So what are your thoughts, the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Portland Trailblazers?
Well, I think Billy Donovan's going to stay. Nick Cronin from Cincinnati is the new UCLA head coach, so I think that could put the brakes on.
Has that been made
Billy's
official? I heard
there.
the rumor on that. I didn't know that was official. So, okay, thanks for letting us know that. Go ahead, sir.
This is the Paul George that I think the Pacers fans wanted to see all along, but I think PG realized that he had to go to a team that had a second superstar. That getting one of those in Indianapolis wasn't going to happen. I mean, I think that's the one thing that the Pacers are going to have a hard time doing, is getting a second superstar to play beside Victor Oladipo. So I think that's why PG basically wanted out of town, is he wanted to find that second superstar to play with. And then once he got there with Russell Westbrook, he said he was happy and wanted to stay. But to me, at this point, I think Paul George has become the best player on that basketball team. He's a guy, that I think should be in MVP consideration this year. Has played fantastically throughout the entire season. The Blazers are somewhat of an anomaly. They play in the Pacific Northwest, so here on this side of the country, we don't get to see them a whole lot. play. But, you still got guys like Damian Leonard, C.J. McCollum, who's coming off of an injury, been out about the last 10 games. But, they're a team that disappointed in the playoffs last year. They're a team that earned a high seed and got bounced early on. And, hopefully that doesn't happen to them again this year. I think they're going to have a hard time. You got to stop Paul George, but then you have to stop Russell Westbrook as well. The star power on the Thunder, I think, is a little better. I think they've got a better inside presence with guys like Steven Adams. So I think the Thunder move on and knock out the Trailblazers early on yet again another year.
Do you think Pacer fans should be happy for Paul George, or should they still be a little bit bitter?
I mean, when the trade worked out as well as it did, I don't think you need to be bitter anymore. Had you got a bunch of crap in return and things that hadn't worked out, but let's be honest, you got two guys that have extremely, excelled when it came to the Pacers team. I mean, who would have thought, 2.5 years later, you would look down and say, you know what, this turned out to be a pretty fair trade. Because let's be honest, it was going to cost you a fortune to continue to keep Paul George, and the likelihood is he wasn't going to be there. So I think, it was best case scenario. Now, if you're Kevin Pritchard, you've got to go out and find a good to great player who's willing to come now and join this team and play along Victor Oladipo. So the work's cut out for Kevin Pritchard. I think they've got to draft very well, but I don't think there's any reason to be bitter anymore because the Pacers, I think, had the best case scenario. They got two pretty good, damn young players.
Let's real quickly get our MLB fix. I got to start with the NL Central. Obviously, they are just basically half a game behind the Brewers. And number one, you got the Pirates and the Cubs and the Reds. And Reds are doing what Reds do. I kind of like seeing the Cubs behind the Pirates. Still very, very early. But as we look at the National League Central getting going for 2019, and after the playoffs are over and we've had some time to nestle down, it's going to be some time to start watching some baseball. And we really start caring about it after the All-Star break anyway. But the National League Central, let's talk about your Cubs, my Cardinals. Overall, what are your thoughts? The Brewers are right there yet again.
Well, this is the problem when you're the Chicago Cubs of what happens when everybody in your division does stuff in the offseason and you do nothing. And the Cubs have become victim of that. They've got a couple bad contracts on the books, which I think prevented them owner-wise from letting them spend money. You've got the $180-some million deal that they gave Jason Hayward. The bad contract they gave you Darvish last year that has not panned out. And the Cubs' relief pitching has been terrible, like always. So I think that's really hindered the Cubs. The Cardinals made some pretty big moves, especially in getting Paul Goldschmidt, which has really panned out for them. And the Brewers, they didn't lose anybody, and they added a piece or two here and there. So I think that's been really well. I think once the Reds, they'll get it together, it's a very interesting makeup of a team down there. So I think maybe as the summer goes on, they won't be as bad as they've looked so far. You got a bunch of guys who are new in town. So I think that could be a very interesting team to watch. And I'll tell you, Tom, having a fun team that's going to be fun to watch is the Padres, and having their single A minor league team here, getting to watch Fernando Tatis Jr. a couple of years ago. He's going to be something to watch. So when you get a chance to watch him this year in the big leagues play for the Padres, he's a fun kid and got a lot of power.
Well, absolutely, and I totally agree with you on that. Two really big contracts. We haven't had a chance to break these down. Well, a lot of big contracts, but two of the biggest contracts, Bryce Harper and Mike Trout. The Angels not doing so well. They spent all this money to basically keep him for life. Bryce Harper, keep him for life, basically. And I know it's still early in the season. The Phillies are second in their division, but the Angels are just almost in last place. And we can read into the tea leaves and say, you paid all this money for nothing. I think a lot of people did not like that because they feel like it does ruin a team. I don't know, but what are your thoughts? Two big contracts with the Phillies with Bryce Harper, and then the A's keep Mike Trout because, I think that he used Bryce Harper as a negotiating tool because Bryce Harper kind of said, hey, I'll do everything in my power to get him over here at the Phillies. Maybe I know they're good friends, so maybe it was a strategy that they planned out that worked, but Mike Trout got a big contract as well. What are your thoughts on these big, mega baseball contracts?
Well, I mean, when you look at these two teams, I think you're looking at two completely different baseball players. Mike Trout's a guy who doesn't, you don't hear a lot about, partially because he plays for the Angels, but he's just not a big boisterous guy. He's a dude that comes to the ballpark every day and does his job and is worth every single penny, probably a little more. Bryce Harper's a guy who's going to bring people out to watch him play. He's a guy who's going to get the endorsements. He's a guy who's going to sell a lot of jerseys. He's a dude that will give you a lot of production, but he's going to hit slumps. Mike Trout's not a guy that really goes through slumps. You know what I mean? So you're paying two different guys for, it seems like, two different things. And then you look at a team like the Seattle Mariners, who jettisoned their big contracts. They sent away Robinson Cano. They sent away a couple of big contracted pitchers, and they're a team that's 13-3. So you wonder in today's Major League Baseball what really works. It seems like it's a different formula every single year.
Mo for the BS Sports Show and 104.9 The Eagle. I appreciate you joining us. I know you said 20 minutes. I went over just a little bit. I do apologize, sir, but where can people find your work and your masterpieces?
You can always find me on Twitter at Mo Radio Show and on 93.1 The Fan in Lima, Ohio.
Lima, Ohio. The hub, the heartthrob of Ohio, right? It's not really the armpit of Ohio.
Well, it gets there every now and again.
It does. All right, buddy. You have yourself a good weekend. We'll talk with you soon.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Mo from the BS Sports Show. Love having him on. We're able to run the bases, no pun intended, talk some baseball, some NBA playoffs, and, well, the Masters. Not everybody's a golf fan. I'm a huge golf fan. I play golf, so I have to admit I'm a little bit partial. But like I mentioned earlier on in the show, the Masters is something special. And I know that the cliche opening is it's like none other. It's the Masters in Augusta, Georgia. That's going on this weekend. It's just kind of been our overall theme. Of course, NBA playoffs getting kicked off this weekend. And thanks to Matthew Hicks joining us, play the local card with us and talking some NBA playoffs. Mo from the BS Sports Show joined us as well. And most importantly, thank you. No, really, seriously, I insist. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a great show. Remember to download that podcast, hit subscribe wherever you get your podcast at. If you're an Apple person like myself, just go to the Apple Podcast, search The Balance, hit subscribe, and voila, like magic, every time we download a new show, we will be there. And so make sure you do that. Follow us on Twitter. Great place to interact with us, at T-Balance. We like to try to get as much stuff up there from the world of sports that we can. And so we do a lot of tweets and retweets and polls, and a good place for you to interact with us as the fan is at T-Balance on Twitter, on the Twitterverse, on the Twitter universe. You can also follow us on Facebook. Just search The Balance in the fan page world, and you can find us. Again, this is the Masters Weekend. Thank you so much for joining us. But it's going to be an exciting time, right? Exciting times. Exciting times. And I know you guys loved my Jim Nance voice impression. Come on. I nailed it. I crushed it. Hit it out of the park. Absolutely. Well, my name's Tom Marquis. Thanks for joining us, friends. I'm out of here. We'll see you next week on The Balance, right here on the Balance Radio Network. Remember, don't drink and drive. It isn't cool. I'm out of here. Deuces.